IEEE Kolkata section.
Yeah, good.
Previously, it was known as IEEE Calcutta section. It was formed officially on 28 September 1978 as Calcutta section. So 45 years of journey. Prior to that, it was a Calcutta subsection under Delhi section. And this Calcutta section is very vibrant. We carry out lots of activities throughout the years in the form of technical lectures by experts, seminars, workshops, DL programs, student programs. We have 20 chapters under Kolkata section and 4 affinity group, including LMAG, and 5 subsections. We have also Industry Academia Forum and lots of student branches. So I would now request our chair, Professor Itisha Misro, to say a few words about the activities of Kolkata section. Professor Shah Misro, please.
Thank you, sir, for giving me opportunity to this nice gathering of LMAG. So, regarding Kolkata section this year, already several activities happened. You know, Kolkata section has the honor to obtain 3 milestones among 5 milestones within India. So this year we already organized the IEEE JC Bose milestone program and CSC milestone program, and the Sir CV Raman milestone program will be organizing in the month of September probably. So regarding the milestone program, I feel very honored that the 2 milestone program, Sir JC Bose milestone and the CV Raman milestone, was obtained in the year 2012, September, in the month of September, when I was the secretary of the Kolkata section. And this is obtained under the chairship of Professor Shivaji Bandyopadhyay, Shivaji Chakraborty. So the first millimeter wave communication demonstrated by Sir J.C. Bose in Presidency College, Calcutta in 1895, which was 2 years before Marconi's demonstration for long wave in inland, for which this milestone is awarded. And we are very honored that at that period we found Bose, Prasad J.C. Bose was 100 years ahead of his time. Today we can see the flourish of millimeter wave communication. Still his demonstration is significant in the today's millimeter wave communication context. So we know Bose's demonstration in Presidency College, Calcutta includes transmission and reception of electromagnetic waves at 60 gigahertz over 23 meters distance through 2 intervening walls by remotely ringing a bell and detonating some gunpowder. In 1897, Bose reported this millimeter wave demonstration in Royal Institute in London in presence of Lord Raleigh, a Nobel laureate, and his supervisor, and other societies in England. He used 2.5 to 5 millimeter wavelength. For his communication system, Bose pioneered in development of entire millimeter wave components like a spark transmitter, coherer, dielectric lens, polarizer, horn antenna, and cylindrical diffraction grating. So for millimeter wave communication establishment, the entire device was developed by himself. Now, regarding the Sir C.V. Raman milestone program, we know that Raman discovered in February 1928, the Raman effect, when a beam of colored light entered a liquid, a fraction of light scattered was of a different color dependent on material property. This radiation effect of molecular scattering of light bears his name as Raman effect, for which he was awarded Nobel Prize in Physics in 1930. The milestone plaque is installed at Cultivation of Science, where he spent many years with his research. And also the Sir J.C. Bose milestone program was installed at Presidency College, his workplace. Now the third milestone program happened to be GMRT in Pune. The Kolkata section have the honor of getting the fourth milestone of India regarding the Calcutta Electric Supply Corporation established the first commercial electric supply company in South Asia. CSC switched on the 1000 kilowatt thermal power generation plant at Emanbag Lane, Prinsep Street in Kolkata, Calcutta. Now it is Kolkata on 17th April 1899. But these delivered 450 225-volt DC power for street lighting, residential and office building, and the Calcutta tramways. The event heralded the era of electricity in the Indian subcontinent. The milestone plaque is installed on 18 December 2021 at Victoria House of CSC Office Kolkata. So every year, IEEE Kolkata section, apart from his flagship conference, seminar, distinguished lecture, we organized the 3 milestone lecture this year. Dr. And Professor Gautam Chattopadhyay from NASA, who is a big scientist, came to deliver the Desi Bose milestone program. And CSC milestone program was delivered by our IEEE President, Professor Soifur Rahman himself, just in the month of July 10th. He spoken about the climate change issues and its severity. We had also a separate program in CSC with the Professor Saifur Rahman along with some of the industry to take some action regarding the climate change issues. So I am very honored that my professor Shalil Kumar Shandal is the LMAG chair of IEEE Kolkata section, and my student Budaditya, supervisor, both my professor Shalil Kumar Sarnal and me, that she is the student of our joint supervision office PhD thesis. He will be speaking in front of so many experienced people like you. So I think he will do, and he will do the justice of delivering this this lecture, LMAC lecture. Thank you all for attending this evening.
Thank you, Professor Shah Misro. I would now request Dr. Moushiki Kaur to formally introduce the speaker.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll take this opportunity to introduce today's speaker. The title of today's talk is Vision Towards Beyond 5G, Security and Vulnerability. Our speaker is Buddhaditya Bhattacharya. He was born in Kolkata, India. After completing his BTech from WBUT in 2008, for a brief stint, he worked at Wipro, Kolkata, before pursuing his PhD degree, as we all heard, from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, India. He has been a member of IEEE since 2010, author of several peer-reviewed scientific journals, book chapters, and conference proceedings, and a distinguished reviewer for Wiley and Springer journals. He has been recognized for voluntary services in IEEE through the organization of seminars, distinguished lecturer programs, and student chapter activities. He is currently working as an associate professor at the School of Electronics Engineering, VIT, University, Vellore. His current research interests include deep learning-based channel estimation strategies for LTE and intrusion detection analysis for 5G networks. A dedicated professor with outstanding research aptitude has earned him many laurels, including published patent work, recipient of the prestigious UGC grant for Meritorious Student 2009, and Raman Research Awards 2023, to name a few. His current research interests includes IoT networks, data science, wireless communications and networks, robotics, network security, cybersecurity, blockchain, and deep learning. A passionate YouTuber, that's new amongst us, I see, with over 2.5K subscribers. Well done, you, with the sole purpose of knowledge sharing. Thank you so much for being with us. Over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Actually, I'm pretty overwhelmed to see so many learned professors and my guide also here. So on behalf of like all of you, I humbly thank everyone for inviting me, especially Professor Chanel actually asked me to just go for a to give a talk on my expertise. So I thought, okay, I'll share it. So given the fact that I'll just start the screen sharing and then maybe I'll just start doing it. Just give me a moment. Is it visible right now?
Not yet. I'll let
Not
you
yet?
know. No, not yet.
All right, 1 minute. Is it now visible?
Yes, but the slide is not yet visible, but your screen sharing option is showing. So did you do the slideshow yet?
Yeah, I did that actually. It's now full screen mode. And it's showing me stop sharing as well. My title slide is supposed to be coming right now, but it's showing your screen sharing is paused. I don't know why. I think now it is fine. Is it?
Mm,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Now we can.
Yeah. Now it's good.
No. I think now it is.
Make it slide
I
mode.
think this is now it's fine.
Yeah.
Is it fine?
It's come.
Yeah.
It has come.
Yeah. Correct. So just one suggestion from my end. Should I keep my video on for the whole time, or can I keep it off?
Mosiki, please take one photograph. Then you switch off.
Yes,
I'll
sure.
keep it on.
Just give me a moment. I'll just click with your initial slide. Let me click a photograph.
With this
All right.
slide.
Yes,
Yeah.
Professor
Understood.
Misra, could you also turn on your video? You're not visible here. It's fine. You can start. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. So before I start, I would first introduce myself, and I would thank IEEE LMAG for this wonderful opportunity that is given to me in terms of creating the environment of knowledge sharing. As I already had, it was told in my brief introduction that I also have some YouTube channel in which I usually keep sharing content over there as well for the students. So this is also in the same manner. I think this will broaden the horizon of knowledge and sharing for that matter. So today's topic that I thought of telling is vision towards beyond 5G and the security and the vulnerability aspects of it. As already been pointed out, I've been working in VIT for almost 9 years now. So presently I'm serving as the associate professor there in the Department of Communication, and we call it the School of Electronics and Engineering. So in short sense. So before I jump in onto the agenda for today, which I thought of presenting over here, I must say that what prompted me to work on this particular domain. And the reason was that when I started working post my PhD, it was around 2016-17, like that. So at that point of time, when I came here in VIT, and I found that one of the buzzwords which came around at that point of time was the 4G communication. Because I worked in mostly 3G. So after that, the 4G communication came up, and I started working on that. And suddenly the shift happened, and people started to believing just before the pandemic and all that 5G is there, and forget about 4G. Now we are going to work around 5G. So then I started working with 5G a little bit. And then I tried to find out that students who are mostly undergraduates and the PG students, they were having a look at a certain different aspect of 5G. And that was primarily they were looking at the IoT networks. I guess many of us are, if I don't know whether it is new term to everyone, but IoT is the Internet of Things for that matter. So I found out that people are working in that domain of IoT. And I started also working a little bit on IoT, keeping in mind that my background was in wireless communication and the physical layer aspects on that. So I tried that. I tried somehow to merge both these two together. So that was the first initial, I would say, motivation towards this work. And that is where I continued my work. And this is one of the portion of the work that I have done so far. And based on that, I have categorized this presentation. So initially, we'll start with something called as overview of 5G, because just to make us aware of the where we stand right at this point of time. So based on that, we will discuss about the security threats, that is how it is relevant and how it is so much of concern in every generations of mobile telecommunication leading towards 5G. Then we will shift our attention to the different challenges that is concerning 5G networks specifically, and how the different enablers or the vulnerabilities of 5G can be taken care of, or like cope up with. So that is another segment that I would touch upon at least. And finally, at the end, we will try to take a look at one of the intrusion detection strategy, or we call as the IDS system for an IoT network, using the conventional MAC protocol. But in that, we are going to use two of the buzzword right now for every other application, which is the optimization schemes using the ML and DNN networks. So I'll at least touch upon those points a bit as much as possible within the given time frame. So keeping that in mind, let me start with the overview of 5G. So to understand the overview of 5G, we need to start off with the evolution of the technology. And although we pretty much are aware of, like those who are working in this particular field, we are pretty much aware of this fact that when 1G arrived in the market long time back, although it is not from Indian context, I would say, but it was preliminary in the US and UKs and some of the European countries and even in Japan. And it was found out that it was an analog in nature and it was primarily designed for the voice. Okay, now, but the problem, as we all know, maybe that for the 1G, there was limited coverage and there was a huge problem with the security itself. That was one of the biggest drawback of the analog systems, or the 1G for that matter, where we experienced that the eavesdrops were so much that people were able to listen to what other people are saying. Unlike now, where we are connected to a particular network or particular platform, but we can share it without any trouble, that no one is listening to it other than the authenticated user who are actually part of this team, right? So that was never the question in 1G. So that led to the advent of 2G, the most popular one, which happens to be the GSM as one of the standard of mobile communication. And I guess most of us are aware of this GSM for that matter, because at that point of time, we were using the Nokia handsets, the Samsung handsets, small 1122, that Nokia model, which used to have. And mostly the primary advantage of leading towards one of this evolution was the improved voice quality and add on some of the securities. I'll come to the security aspect sometime later, as this is just the evolution of the technology, how it happened. And finally, when people started to believe that the data or the voice is fine, now we want to switch over to data. So that is where people started to believe that the mobile can be made smarter. And that's where the smartphone comes in. And we can use some apps, or we can use the mobile, even without the apps also, we can actually browse the network through internet and all. So that's why people started to believe in the mobile data. And that resulted into another set of generation, which we famously call as the 3G generation. And for a very long period of time, in fact, now also we have the HSPA, which is the high-speed packet access technique, and HSPA plus also as serving as one of the standards. Given the fact that most of the mobile companies nowadays do prefer to have 5G enabled devices, but truly speaking, 5G is still yet to be achieved in that way in India, for that matter. So all the buzzword regarding 5G and the enabling things or application or the device is enabled of 5G, those things are a little fuzzy, I would feel. But you will find this HSPA, HSPA plus very commonly in all of your mobile devices. Whenever, suppose you are like you are traveling in a train, okay, or high speed, any high speed train, you will find that your on top of your mobile screen, you will find that H plus will be mentioned in many places. So that actually gives us information that basically this is an HSPA, or the 3G is what the speed is going to have. But nevertheless, the basic leap from 2G to 3G was the mobile data and the higher data rates. Although it was very expensive, that's why people used to be very reluctant in using the data so freely. But until 2015-16 in Indian context, when Jio came into the market with providing free SIM cards and free data as such, the TRAI actually had released, I don't have the data right now exactly, but there was a humongous increase in the amount of people offering or opting for 3G for the communication purpose. All right, so that actually opened the floodgates for mobile communication, especially with 3G. But as 3G progressed further, people started to believe that we need more. As we famously say that ye dil mange more, in the same manner, people started to believe that yes, I need more data rate because we need more internet access. We need higher speed data. Now, not only we will access the internet, but we will also access a video over the internet. We will watch on YouTube while traveling in a bus. Okay, or we might go ahead with a booking of an airfare ticket while traveling in a train, maybe. So that is where the high speed data and a very sophisticated, I would say, mobile broadband was essential. And that is where people had the standardized in terms of LTE, which stands for long term evolution, or the long term evolution advanced LTE-A. So people were pretty happy. Actually, we were pretty happy that 4G enabled devices were there pretty much okay with it. But as time progressed and people, again, with each and every generation, people started to believe in something new and achieving something new. Now, suddenly people thought that data is over, voice is fine, we have taken care of that. Why not go beyond that? And what is that beyond that? If you observe here in that specific points that I've mentioned, one was the high achievable data rate, which will be around 10 Gbps for that matter. One of the another factor was the ultra reliability. I'll come to that separately. And one of the factors was low latency. And these three factors, in fact, the three pillars of 5G, I'll come to the next slide, in fact, regarding that, made an announcement that we require some different set of architecture for that matter, which will be backward compatible, but it will require certain degree of architectural change. Although we are not going to discuss as such with respect to the architectural things as of now in this particular segment, but what we are going to discuss is that with all this generation evolving one after the another, we will still have one common factor, and that is how to provide security and privacy and confidentiality, whatever you call it by name, how we are going to provide that to the end user. Because one common thing you might observe over this period, the flow diagram that I've given, is that 5G has its own merits of including more and more number of users. So maybe that will be clear in the next slide, where I'll just, this is a focus area. I'll come to the next slide of the 5G generation or the requirement of 5G. So this is just a briefing of the same thing of how we are actually focused area. What were the focused area? Just like what I discussed. So you can see that in 3G, we focused on the throughput, the speed of mobile data, as well as the voice part. Whereas when we come to 4G, as such, it was primarily attributed that we want more data. We want more data rate. But the other two parameters, the connection density and the latency that you are observing, that was only possible when we considered for the 5G focused area. So these three, now the question is, why do we need that? Okay, why do we need that? Why not we are happy with a mobile device which can communicate over phone and we are able to browse at a pretty high speed? Then why is the need of this density and the latency or delay? Low latency or low delay. So to understand that, let me just show you the requirements for a 5G. What are the standard set of promises that 5G belongs to here? And one of the cases you can observe that it should provide around 10 Gbps of data rate. Okay, which is a humongous leap because it is around 10 to 100 times to that of what 4G was offering. And that is not the case only. It also promises a latency of around 1 milliseconds with a 99% almost availability of network, up to 100x, you can see over here, 100x number of connected device in a unit area. Okay, so it's a huge leap that we are expecting from a 5G requirements point of view. And in fact, another feature is that there is a 10-year battery life for low power IoT device, because most of the IoT device works with a very low power requirement. So if it is 10 years, we can't even imagine that a device doesn't require 10 years of charging. So you can imagine the amount of possibility in terms of green energy revolution we can expect out of this 5G setup. That is one of the primary motivation why people started believing in 5G and started working on 5G to make it a standard. But as I said, I'll come to that also later where the silver lining is. But our topic of discussion is that with this infrastructure, with this insight or the objective of 5G and its requirement, how we are going on with the advent of the new technology, what are the drawbacks that we are also carrying it forward. To understand that, with respect to the security aspect, which I'll come later, let me just briefly let you know about the three categories which I was telling you a little bit while back ago. So there are three basic categories under 5G. All right. So one of the first category is the enhanced mobile broadband, or we call it the eMBB. All right. And the basic motto of this is faster on the go. That means already, I think I have shown you in the previous slide itself that the speed which we are expecting out of 5G is humongously high, right? And also one of the unique feature that has been added with 5G is the augmented reality. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but augmented reality, we are actually using it some way or the other in VIT as well while we are teaching in classes. Especially it became very useful tool when the pandemic was there, where we are visualizing any element, any object virtually in the classroom. Now, for that to happen, you require immersive experience, that as if you are sitting there with that particular object, and you are as if look and feel wise, you are as if feeling the whole object. Like you are sitting there, you are touching a robot. The robot is not there, but you are actually touching the robot. You can feel the links, the joints, and the movement of it. So that's how important 5G is, because 5G ideally offers this much of detailing. And as you can see, HD video streaming. One of the problems that you must have observed, I think all of us must have observed, that the last point, if you see, that suppose you are moving in a train, in a very high-speed train or anywhere for that matter, and you are trying to watch a Netflix movie or a web series for that matter, or a YouTube video for that matter, you will find that always there is a tendency, more or less, that there will be a buffering that will take place while you are looking at a very HD quality videos. Now, 5G, what it offers is that with the infrastructure that it has, it is promising that we are going to have a very high speed data rate. Okay, and that data rate would be sufficient for an HD viewing experience as and when, wherever we go. So that's a huge leap, because the more we do that, we are catching attention of the subscribers who are going to benefit out of it. Okay, so that's one of the pillars of 5G in terms of enhanced mobile broadband. The other one is The other one that we come across is the mMTS, we call it, which is a massive machine type communication, which the term itself says connecting all the things together. All right. So this is also one of the key aspects of 5G, where a large number of devices with low energy consumption can fit together in a particular area, and they can share amongst themselves either with the same devices or device to devices or different diversified devices with different set of applications. At a time, you might arrange with respect to a mobile communication, maybe that may be one case. The other case, you might have a data sharing, or at some point you might have a voice communication. You might offer a device is talking to another device, or maybe an augmented one, like when one vehicle is talking to another vehicle, like that. So all those features comes under this part itself. So you can observe some of the application areas that I've told you. For example, managing traffic lights. But traffic lights, the one that we are experienced with is with the microcontrollers. But supposing and imagine a scenario where the traffic light is controlled automatically. All right, based on the density of population, density of the car, the traffic light will go switch on automatically. In those cases, there will be multiple devices which will connect something like this. All right, so there will be a scenario where there will be so many different sets of node in a particular given area, and they are talking amongst themselves. So that is a huge possibility in a 5G only possible scenario. All right, so that is another key enabling area for 5G. And the third pillar that happens to be with 5G is called as the URLLC, which is the ultra reliable low latency communication. This is important, especially for unmanned vehicle or the autonomous car. Very commonly, we come across nowadays that Tesla is testing driverless cars, and they are moving from one point to another without even a driver, for that matter. In those cases, the two cars needs to communicate amongst themselves in such a manner that latency is coming around 1 millisecond. So how fraction of a second the communication should take place. All right. Or even like, for example, remote surgery. You are sitting someplace and you are doing a surgery somewhere remotely. So that robot, if you are trying to control it, you need to have that minuscule latency, so that the instructions given and the execution should not have any delay. So that's why you are promising around 99% of reliability from 5G with a latency of in low single digit in milliseconds. So that is around 75% improvement over the 4G LTE. This, in fact, is one of the key feature of 5G, or the choosing the 5G. So what we have observed up to this point is the objective of why 5G we are studying, or we are going to have a long run on the go, as well as what are the key enabling categories for 5G that we come across. Now, leading forward, we are still not started with the security aspect as of now. This is the basic structure already we have discussed. This is just a pictorial representation of the same. And you can observe the basic domain somehow it overlaps, but ideally there are some specific industry which will require certain degree of the service. All right. So this is basically the structure of the services or categories of services in summary that we have observed. Now, coming to the next part, which I told you, now we come to the security aspect of it, where we will lead our discussion to. So the security threats evolution, how it happened from 1G to 5G. So when we come across 5G, already I told you about it, that there is no security as such policy which was imposed on it. And that's why one of the pandemic, it happened in that way, that all the phone calls, whatever happened during the 1G, the first generation of mobile communication, were complete, we will not have any privacy whatsoever. So that is one of the biggest drawback as it happens for a 1G network. And naturally, it would not be popular at all. So it was not popular anyway. So the second generation, as I already had stated, that the voice communication was the primary objective of it. But along with that came some of the cryptographic techniques like the COMP128 or the A5 cryptographic algorithm. You can see over there in the fourth point over here. Now, these algorithms are primarily used by some of the, in some cases it is transposition ciphers, in some cases it is the asymmetric key cipher, in some cases the symmetric ciphers were used. But whatever it is, in general, it was a security measure which was taken care of. All right. Although these security features became very obsolete after a certain degree, but at least it was better than 1G. And that is one of the features why 2G became so popular, especially from Indian context. People still are using 2G phones and GSM phones nowadays with absolute security. And in fact, another feature that came up with 2G was the subscriber identity module or the SIM cards, which are very readily available, and we don't take much pride in SIM card for that matter. But SIM card ideally carries a lot of information. And one of the major thing that a SIM card will have is the cryptographic solution or the cryptographic algorithm, which is implemented inside that chip. So definitely that was one of the biggest advantage and a leap ahead compared to 1G. But apart from that, the security threats, even in that 2G, was one of the cases was eavesdrop. Even with that, it was not protected with the eavesdrop, because as I said, the COM 128 and A5, like this 128 is like the key size. That's what it indicates. And these algorithms, if we go back to the details of this algorithm, they are relatively very simple to decode. Like if you do the reverse engineering, you will get the solution that how the algorithm works. So that was one of the key drawback of the cryptographic solution itself, because usually in a cryptographic solution or in a cyber security, if you call it, one of the biggest, one of the secure most algorithms will not be decided, or whatever the outcome of the algorithm cannot be decided by back calculation. That is one of the feature. Okay, the more stronger the cipher is, the more difficult it will be to decipher. All right, so that was missing over here. So that's why this eavesdrop came into picture. That's why the fake base station came into picture, where the rogue base station will mimic as if it is a legitimate base station. And that was major concern. Even like if you are trying to make a phone call and if the base station is faulty, you are basically making the authentication with the false base station, and you are sharing all your information with that false base station. So the false base station can be an intruder. We can consider that as an intruder. An intruder will know all of the details about your phone. If it gets access to the phone, it can read anything what is there in your phone. So that was one of the major threat area, security vulnerability, that happened with the second generation of mobile communication. Finally, this was taken care of in the third generation when we came up with some of the more stringent cipher techniques. And you can see the longer cipher key of 128 bits. And as I said, the reverse engineering to those algorithms were relatively difficult. And also what happened is, for post 3G, the domain-wise security was improved. Like, as you can see, the network access security, the network domain security, user domain security, application domain security. So each and every domain has a different set of security protocol. So that made it things little bit more interesting and more difficult for the intruders to break in. All right. But even in that, what happens is that with 3G, one of the major concern that came up is that the user who are using the old OS, the operating system, which are old and non-updated, the intruder started to get hold of those systems. And you can see this, I think almost all of you might be agreeing to that many of the time we are still yet receiving this kind of messages on our phone, in which one of the cases they might say that you have won a certain prize, please click on this link, or your bank, you require an validation or KYC you need to submit, please click on this link, or the hyperlinks, please go to this. So this kind of problems are now being categorized under the vulnerabilities of mobile phones. And these are called attacks. Actually, they are cyber attacks, and we call it in a different ways. Like, for example, we call it the man in the middle attack. We sometimes call it the denial of service attacks. Okay, so we'll see that as we go on. So this type of attacks are still there. Okay, and many people who are not aware of how to handle these scenarios, they might mislead in clicking these particular links, and they will be redirected to something like a false malicious site, and they will have the access to your phone. All right, so that becomes a real trouble, and you will find this is very common in social networking also. You will come across in many places. Some of you or many of us will post a message that saying that my profile has been hacked, and whatever was the post from my end has been shared to every one of you is completely fake. It is not shared by me, and I need to report it to Facebook or Instagram for that matter, and we need to reset the password and authentication for that matter. So all those things comes under the security threats, and that is again a part of the journey of the generation of mobile communication as it goes. All right, so hopefully this all are pretty much relevant to all of us. We are still getting that, and we are trying to, we need to avoid this kind of information as much as possible. We should not be bothered with any such offers and freebies as such in mobile phones for that matter. So keeping that in mind, when fourth generation came in, they actually adopted two of the crucial cryptographic techniques. One was the EPS encryption algorithm, which has the different flavors of A0, A1, A2 like that. And the other one called as the EPS integrity algorithm, which EIA we call it. And this was primarily done in the basis that the key size was increased. That you can see in 256-bit long key size was used. Because the more the number of keys we are using, the more number of combinations of keys we can generate per user. Now, many of you might be not completely aware of the process of cryptography and how it works in systems. So that's why I've kept a separate slide for that after this. So we will see that what exactly is the role of key and why we are so bothered with increasing the keys as well. Also, we can see that the authentication of key agreement, or AKA we call it, that became prominent in fourth generation. In fact, that is there in fifth generation, and the generations to come also it will be there, where there will be multiple protocols which the server needs to authenticate with the end user in order to get the access to the network. So that is why people are working on these algorithms, and we are trying to make sure that somehow this intrusion detection is taken care of. All right. So keeping that in mind, as we go along with the 5G, for that matter. So these are some of the problems with fourth generation, as I already had pointed out. Even with the security of 4G, which I said, it is still having the denial of service. All right. Now, just to elaborate on what is denial of service, because it might might find this term a bit weird. Denial of service is like you are an authenticated user, but suppose someone has cloned your phone or your device, and they are trying to mimic that is actually you, and they are sending some random generated message to the server and keeping the server busy. So whenever you as an authenticated user, you are trying to make a call, or you are trying to make a connection to internet or something like that, you will be forced to say that the server is busy or try after some time. So that's basically a denial of service. That's also a theft of privacy, one would say. And similarly, another problem that comes in with the 4G and 5G is the high power 4G devices, because they work in a very high frequency band. Okay. Now, as they are in that surface for that matter, so it is very vulnerable because if suppose some devices are having low power devices and some of them are high power devices, they can be easily targeted. So what will happen? Those phones are so much capable, not only phones, but those devices are so much capable, they itself will be targeted by the malicious user. And the network itself will trigger that set of problems or set of security vulnerability across the network from that particular device. Like the device initially was fine, but it will be affected by the malware. Okay, the virus in general case, if I call it by malware, and the phone will now become rogue. What it will do is it will try to infect the whole network one after the other. So that is one of the threats, one of the biggest threats. That's why 5G is offering a very low power service. Because if we can reduce that power, then the device capability also will come down. That's why you will find nowadays, whenever we are purchasing devices, mobile phones for that matter, which is more common to all of us, you will find the specification, or even with the advertisement that it comes in, always the battery specification will come in. Because one is to make the phone lighter. That's one of the case. But another problem is with respect to the security aspect as well. One of the underlining process, but it won't be like so public and popular for that matter. Mostly they call it that the phone size and the weight of the phone is very light. That's why we are reducing it. But actually that is one of the reason. But another reason is the security threats also can be minimized, as has been shown in different researches. So that led to the 5th generation security threats. So all these security threats which were there in the previous generations were taken care of by 5G, mostly. Okay. So as the problem with 5G came up is that, as already I have pointed out in the previous slides, that in 5G, we have many connected devices of different types. Now, suppose you have an IoT device, IoT network in general. So what will happen? There will be some sensor nodes, there will be some networking nodes, and there will be some kind of a cloud. So cloud here is where you are sending the data, right? Wirelessly, you are sending the data for the further processing. Now, what will happen that amongst these devices, suppose there is another new set of devices that comes in. Now, what problem with IoT is that IoT network or the sensor, they usually work with low power, very low power, as I think I have mentioned that. And they have a very vulnerable protocol such that it will break very, very smoothly if some intruder comes in. So that intruder will also send the data to the cloud, or maybe it will connect to the sensor as well, and it will fetch out the data itself. So this kind of a problem, the diverse quality of service constraint on 5G makes it more vulnerable, because it has to serve as per the demand, because we are expecting that many number of 4.7 billion odd users to be using a particular service. So the computational power of device, as I told you in 4G also, those are absolutely possible in a 5G. All right. So more and more devices, they are trying to communicate with a very high speed. That means the data sharing is happening almost every time. So definitely, if the intruder or the malware is trying to know the data which is passing by, they can easily intrude. Okay, because there is a huge coordination that is required amongst the devices on hand. And that in fact happened. I don't know how many of you know it or not, that one of the malwares which affected Iran's nuclear power plant, I don't know how many know it, it's not Stuxnet. Okay, Stuxnet, the only thing that it did, okay, this is a very sophisticated malware. What it did, it actually attacked the Iranian nuclear power plant, where in the centrifuge, the uranium deposition is there. Now, there will be some threshold which will be kept. So what happened is the virus or the malware actually attacked that those ICS, which is the industrial controlling system, and they started to increase that, they started to change the threshold. And you can imagine that in a nuclear power plant where you are changing the threshold of a particular main core material, what can be the complexity and what can be the catastrophic effect that will take place. Okay. And the other hand, this diagram that you are looking at over here, actually, this is taken from Kaspersky's website. Kaspersky is the premium antivirus that is provided to almost globally. So you can see that these are the countries: Iran, Israel, Sudan, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia. So all of these countries actually got affected by this particular malware. So most of their industrial control systems were hacked, and they were asked to do something else which was not supposed to be done. Okay, so that was one of the biggest, this is one of the biggest security threat. In fact, flame is another such thing. It's a very harmless mail. Okay, it will just be a very harmless mail that will come to you with an attachment. And suppose you are not aware enough, so what you will do is you will open the attachment, or you will try to reply back to that mail, something like that. What will happen, that they will attack those machines. All right. And those machines will act as the attacking point, next set of attacking point. So it's basically a cascading thing that will take place. And this also, the flame, in fact, it attacks the devices. So all the interconnected devices in IoTs, in mobile communication, networking for that matter, all these cases, or the Wi-Fi routers, whatever you feel like, what you can imagine to be a network, the devices surrounding a network, all of those devices might get hacked because of this flame. All right. And Flame is a very complex program that is developed before this purpose of hacking. Okay. People haven't found the right solution, to be honest, as of now, to break this particular malware as of now. All right. So these are some of the very important, dangerous things that might happen. Even you can see the last one, which is the online gaming sites, which is a common thing because we are providing a high data rate. And one of the requirements from the user is that with the high data rate, we are going to have online streaming of a game. We will play without any disturbance or anything for that matter. And the streaming will be also very high. In all those cases, these portals, these illegal websites, they will track your IP as well as they will track your phone or the device that you are looking. And in a way, they are actually including some amount of malware in your system. So that's why we need to be very careful in making this as a protection. We have to give a protection to our devices as well as for our systems in large. All right. So now I think we got an idea about the objective of 5G and how 5G developed. We found the idea about the generation of evolution of the different sets of mobile communication. We have also found out the basic 3 pillars of 5G. Okay, the eMBB, the MTS, and URLCs. And now we found out that how the threats of cybersecurity or mobile security was at stake in different generations to come. So in that aspect, let me just come to the third point, which happens to be the challenges concerning specifically to 5G networks, because that's our topic for the day. And in that, one of the factors that as I said, I'll just brief on that, which is the public key infrastructure. This is basically the public key infrastructure was there in 4G as well. This is one of the factors that makes it to be less vulnerable compared to every other previous generation, and that is called as the trusted infrastructure. And by that, what I mean is that the public key infrastructure relies on a very high-end solution for a very high-end cryptographic algorithm. And that depends on the usage of the key. If you observe in this diagram specifically, that this is basic structure of the nature of PKI. And if you see the sender over here, will send a request over here, which happens to be the registration authority. And this registration, if it is okay, this basically is an authorization that is taking place. After the authorization is taking place, the request will go to some kind of a certification authority. Now, this CA will make sure that they will issue some kind of a private key. So this is generic cryptography, as we all know. But the same thing with different layers of protection is still going on right now. So this private key will be private to the user one over here, the sender. So using the private key, the data will be encapsulated or secured, or we call it the ciphertext. And that ciphertext will be sent over here. You can see the signed data. As we generally will do a signed document, we will send a document over the air and we will sign it. And the recipient will see the sign and they will verify that yes, the verification that is the correct person who has sent the data. So based on that, the recipient also will try to verify it through a verification authority. And the verification will be done by using a public key over here. So each and this public key, even if it gets to the intruder, doesn't matter because the private key remains as it is intact with the individual users. There are many algorithms such as RSA, DH algorithms and all Diffie-Hellman algorithms where this key exchange protocol can take place. And based on that, we can have a very positive response to any attack. So based on that, I'll just share this little bit points over here. You can see the problems with the 5G, which can be addressed with this PKI system. That USIM, that is a universal SIM, we call it nowadays for the 5G, we call it the USIM, contains a permanent keys, which is a PKI. And but the problem with 5G is we have more number of devices. Now, for each and every cases, 4.7 billion devices, if you want to reuse the keys, okay, that becomes a tedious job. Okay, so that is where the conversation may get exposed and the breach of privacy will take place. So that is one of the feature that we need to take care while designing the security aspect of 5G. So although we have a trusted infrastructure, but still the liability is on us or the designer to accommodate this many number of people. Because again, going back to the previous slide, we are promising in a 5G that we will have 10-folds of users in a particular area, which will be huge. So that to cater the need of those ever-growing user, we need to have a method to counter this attack. All right. So this is one of the solution that comes across is using the carrier-wise global adoption of a PKI system, which means that there will be a pool of keys, pool of private keys or pool of keys, we can say, and each and every carrier will be assigned a particular key. So those particular keys and the associated carrier will only be using them so that there is no such resharing of key which is required. All right. So this is one of the solutions which has been proposed in some of the literatures. So one of the challenges is that under trusted infrastructure is this. The next part that comes in is called as the interconnecting device. I think by now we all are agreeing to that fact that 5G is a service where we are actually making the IoT and connected device work together. So you can see the AR, VR experience we are there. We have an autonomous vehicle also over here. And we also have medical devices for remote surgeries for that matter. And we also have a cloud center for that matter. So all this put together, unlike to the previous generation where we were focusing primarily maybe a laptop, maybe a mobile phone, maybe an iPad or something like that, wearable devices, now we have so many varieties of devices that the security becomes vulnerable because each of them will not have a standard protocol. And moreover, all these devices are almost online every time. And the more you are online, the more is the chance that the eavesdrops and the denial of service that will take place over and over again. So that is a major concern. In fact, you will see in my work that I'll present at the last, this is one of the biggest concern that is happening with the deployment of 5G. Okay. So what we can do is, even the problem is that some of the devices will have an operating system which will be outdated, which is a very common thing. Even now also we experience that whenever we have a laptop. You just imagine yourself that you have a laptop or you have an Android phone. We will rarely update our operating system. We will rarely do that. All right. So although in mobile phone it is very easy, we can just from the notification itself, we can have like we can tap it and we can have the download for the OS upgradation. But for Windows and for that matter in laptops, we rarely do that. And even it happens with the devices also, because the devices will rarely upgrade its operating system. And hence, those devices will be vulnerable to the attack. And in fact, those devices will serve as the node to the next point of attack for that matter. So that is where the havoc may be created in a home network, or the privacy will be compromised, because you are working on a smart city, you are working with smart meter, you are working with smart vehicles, you are working with a smartphone. All our smartness will be ceased to exist if this kind of a malware or a process of intrusion happens. All right. So that is another concerning issue that needs to be taken care of. The other side of it is the HETnet, that we call it the heterogeneous network. I think many of us have worked on it. This is, in fact, is a very promising technique in terms of giving the end user the satisfaction with respect to the densely populated areas and giving them a seamless service over the period of time. But the problem is, one of the problem that comes in is that the generic rule is the highest SNR determines the strongest node. Now, whenever you are looking at a picocell or the, I guess we are aware of this picocell and femtocell and the macrocell for that matter, the high powered node or the high SNR nodes will be easily determined, and they become the target of the malicious attacks. Okay, so that becomes a crucial again. So although we are serving for the betterment of delivering high throughput, high capacity, low energy consuming devices, but we are actually making sure those devices are open to attack. So one of the cases that comes in, like the high powered HPN and LPN, we call it the high-powered node and the low-powered node. High-powered node is basically, you can imagine to be the base stations. Okay, we call it the E node B, the enhanced node B in our technical terms. So the base stations, if you see colloquially when we see it, and the low-powered nodes are basically the small cells, the small cell like the Wi-Fi routers and all we call it. So both of them, they will have a balancing issues. Why? Because what happens is, due to this security vulnerability, the high-powered source will always be triggered. Like in a network, suppose some device will require some signal connection, the high-powered node is available, Okay, and it will be directly triggering to that high power node. Now, what will happen? The high powered node or the high powered HPN, we call it, that will, after a certain period, will be going beyond its threshold. And it will like just stand alone as it is without giving the service to end user. This can be actually initiated by a malware. And this can be one of the security threats, in fact, where the LPN and the HPN are overburdened or the balancing is not there. The LPN remains completely unexhausted, whereas HPN becomes highly exhausted. And since HPN will cover more number of more area and more people, so definitely that will affect more number of people surrounding that particular area. So that is one of the concerns which has some solutions, in fact, has been proposed. For example, spatial modeling is one of such case where we will see some probabilistic view. Based on that, we will put the nodes according to that probability, or there's some statistics we will gather that how much is the fading rate, how much can be the interference that might cause. Based on that, we will do some modeling. So that's spatial modulation. Mobile association is like we will interact. The mobile will interact amongst themselves and they will have some policy which will overrule the conditions for the malware to attack. So this kind of solutions have been proposed in different articles, in fact, and people are still working on this. But this also happens to be one of the key challenging area for 5G network. The last but not the least, which comes in to be handy, which in fact till now has the least found security vulnerability, and that is called the device-to-device communication, the D2D in general we call it, where the device is communicating directly without the interaction of an access point. Now, why it is advantageous is because since there is no third party or third controller in between, basically we are avoiding unnecessary talk amongst the user. So whenever you are looking at when we visualize a normal mobile telephony, what we are doing is basically we are trying to make a call. We are authorizing it to the nearest base station. The base station itself will authorize with the MSC or the mobile switching center. From there, the authentication will redirect back to the device. Then the receiver also will do the similar kind of thing. So the uplink and downlink authorization will be complete. Then only the communication will take place. So this kind of thing happen. But on the go, what is happening? I am, as a user, is making my presence felt over the air to a base station. Now, already, as I have told you, that there are possibilities of base station mimicking, or the fake base station, as we call for that matter. So that part has been avoided in D2D, because the central authority like access point and base station will cease to exist for a device-to-device communication. The end user device will be smart enough to perform the auditing and the logging of the data. Okay, so that is one of the biggest advantage of having a D2D communication. And till now, as of now, very rarely we have a scenario where the D2D are having a lot of issues with security, although they will have a different problem, that is having to provide a very high, very low latency for that matter. So that is a different issue. But as far as the security is concerned, it is relatively low for that matter. All right. So these are some of the challenges that comes across with respect to 5G. So now we come to the last but one element, which is the key enablers and the vulnerabilities of 5G. That is how we can overcome 5G, or some of the I would say the definitions of vulnerability. What are the things which we take into account when we consider that the network has been attacked by some malware or something like that? So in that, some of the things which are very common, the MIMO is one of the common enabling technique, as we call it, for 5G. It's definitely going to boost a lot of data rate and all. So, but as we are not discussing the data rate or the efficiency wise or the implementation of MIMO and all, but ideally this provides a very good secure network for that matter, which happens to be one of the key attributes to provide a very good network setup of under 5G. So definitely this will be as already being done in MIMO, or even people have gone beyond to massive MIMO for that matter. But as and when it will be implemented more, the people will now, like at some point, it will realize the shortcomings of MIMO or the massive MIMO in terms of the security aspect. As of now, this has been a key enabler to the 5G network. How it has been, like when we implement a 5G, we require a MIMO for sure. All right. And similarly, we have the software defined network, which is a very interesting and a very observant thing. In that also, the concept is very popular when we are looking at virtualization of system over cloud. Okay, nowadays people, you will find some of the terms that AWS, the cloud services, many of the companies are working on this. So this is one of the factor in terms of 5G network, which is very, very secure. And one of the reasons for it becoming very secure is that the control plane, if you see over here in this diagram, we have a separate control plane and we have something called as forwarding plane. Now, if I just happens to brief a little bit on this, on why it is so secure, is that in this, what happens is why it is becoming very popular, because all of these switches that you are observing over here, these are just generic switches, normal switches in a routing protocol, the normal switches that is used for routing over a network. Now, what happens is these switches will be only working with something called as forwarding table, which has again three components, which usually are pattern field, counter field, and action field. You can see over here, pattern field, counter field, and action field. Now, the job of this is that this pattern field will have certain pattern for each data package. If I say it very plainly, so each of those data packets will have a packet header, which will be called as pattern field. And that pattern field needs to be authenticated each and every time. And whenever it gets authenticated, the counter field will initiate by 1. Okay, it will increment its condition by 1. And finally, the action field will take care of the action, maybe retransmission, maybe data collection, whatever be the node it is. So all those data, all those decisions are made in forward plane. Control plane remains as it is. After doing this, it goes to network operating system, then it goes to network abstraction segment, and finally it goes to application. Now, interestingly, what is happening that you can see over here, the policy rules. So suppose you are designing a network and you are making some policies on that particular network, you actually can make sure that there is a feedback that goes in over here to the operating system, and there will be an adaptive change in the policies that you are making to the network. So in that way, what we are looking at is that we are kind of upgrading the system based on the requirement. So suddenly, if there is some problem that might happen in between, there is a change of authorization, there is a change in the protocol that will take place in a dynamical fashion. So that is why this becomes very, very interesting as a research point of view, as well as from the implementation point of view. The other things which are very common, I think all of us have heard these terms before. In fact, the new radio, we call it the one of the air interface, we call it the new radio in 5G, which happens to provide the high data rate, low latency, and better energy consumption also. Network slicing is another such enabler, where we will slice the available network into dedicated traffic. Like the T2D will use a certain pattern of traffic for a low latency, but for suppose the connected all the mMTS one, they will offer a certain slice of a chunk of the bandwidth. So like that, for normal communication, there will be a chunk of bandwidth. So like that, for each and every type of data communication, we will have certain pieces of bandwidth. So that may be one of the places where we might see in years to come of network slicing. Already people are working on this, although I have not worked that much. Now coming to the last one, which is basically the internet things, which I actually have done a little bit of work on that. And that is becoming, because this is also one of the key factors of connecting so many devices, and the versatility that an IoT device brings, or IoT network brings to any application for that matter, becomes one of the key aspects of why it should be used for 5G. So keeping this in mind, the enablers for 5G, we come to the vulnerability, or the definition of, or the parameters that actually takes care of the vulnerability. So one of the things as we call is the confidentiality. So confidentiality, as the term suggests, that we will all have the sensitive data and it should be confidential. There should not be any spoofing. All right. That can be one of that should be taken care of by the process of like that. That is one of the concern which comes in from the false base station attack. Already I have told you that. So this is one of the weakness, and location discovery via TMSI broadcast message. Because in most of the cases, what happens that we have a scenario where the location updates the person is updating the location, and they will send, and the mobile rather will send the information over the air through just the plain text. And the temporary MSI, the temporary ID, the temporary mobile subscriber identity number will be offered on the air. So any intruder, if it has the capability of intruding to a network, which we have already observed that it is very much possible in over the air, they can catch hold of the temporary ID. And if they get the hold of the temporary ID, your broadcast message will not remain confidential at all. So this insecure transportation method for transferring the secret key becomes a problem. So the spoofing on medical devices, one of the example, I don't have the exact reference over here, the spoof, but it happened actually, some of the medical device similar to the attack by Flax, it happened that the some mimicking of the original devices happened, and that had a catastrophic effect on the practitioners. So another thing that comes in with respect to another aspect is called as a string ray operation. All right. So this, I think many of you might have seen it, or I don't know how many of you have heard about it. It's like that eMBB catcher, we call it. So the process is very simple. The device mimics like a cell phone, the base station, the false base station that I was talking about. So this will have some kind of a device like this. So this device will act as like it will clone the phone. And once it clones, and how it clones, how it will just do a simple repetitive measurement of the signal strength. As and when the signal strength, you will get a probabilistic view that where the device have went, what are the transaction that was taken place by the mobile. From that, they will find out, they will just triangulate, and they will find out what is the location of the phone and what are the information of the phone, or what can be the IMSI of it also. So this is a very prominent problem of string ray operation that will happen with respect to confidentiality that needs to be taken care of. Going further, we have the integrity. I think we can skip a little bit on that, because integrity is where we are not trying to manipulate, like without our authority, someone is manipulating our data. So that's where the integrity comes in. And repeated retransmission will lead to DOS, that is the duplication or the denial of service. Silent downgrade also is a factor where the malicious base station may be able to force an user to downgrade to GSM standard. He is having a 5G connection, but it is forced to take the lower end. And when it goes to lower grade or lower generation, it becomes vulnerable to security attacks. So that is another one of the problem with 5G integrity that needs to be taken care of. All right. False base station we have discussed a lot, in fact, accordingly right now. Another thing is the man in the middle attack, the MITM attack on phones, calls, spoofing, where there will be someone who will be listening to your call. Okay, so that simple thing, which the eavesdrop we call it. So that can be another factor to have alter the integrity of the data communication. Last but not the least is the availability, because nowadays, as we talk about 5G, all information should be functional and accessible all the time. Okay, of any device nowadays, irrespective of whether we are using a Wi-Fi, whether we are using a mobile data, whenever we will type something, it should come, right? So that is one of the factors of availability that should be taken care of. And but during that period, we need to be careful that the DDoS, or the distributed denial of service, doesn't happen. Which happens basically by overburdening fake requests. As I said already, I've given you one of the example where several redundant messages are being sent to the server, and the server kept on busy, and you are not able to access it accordingly. So you can see the diagram itself. In fact, I tried to give there, the target server is here, but the hacker has actually hacked these two systems. And based on that system, these two systems are now acting as a host, and they are actually hacking all the other systems for that matter. And the target server has this many number of devices which are completely unauthorized, although they are mimicking that they are authorized. All right. So that is one of the biggest concern. And when you are when you are considering that you are going to give service to those many number of users, definitely if the server is itself busy and the server is itself compromised, then think about the device itself. That also will definitely get compromised. And so this is another example. The Myrai botnet infected the Internet of Devices, IoT devices, and used to launch distributed denial of service. This, in fact, the diagram that you were looking at, that is very similar to what happened with the Myrai botnet. It is just a botnet. It's just a malware. It's just a automated program which actually hampered the program which was running in some of the systems. And they found out the weak system, which has a very low operating systems and all, and it corrupted that. And that became the host to the next one. So like that goes on. Okay, that it's a cascading effect, as I already said. This is some of the snippet that you can see over here, that it targets 22 flaws. Okay, you can see over here, Myrai botnet targets 22 flaws in D-Link and Netgear devices. Now, D-Link and Netgear service, they are basically the router and the switches, which we are very popularly using all throughout the globe. And even in India also, in our networking domain, we usually use it very much. Okay, and even it happened that because of this Myrai botnet, many of the manufacturing company, they actually found out that they actually have some of these loopholes existing in their system. In fact, some of the software which were there, those are getting hampered because those software people, like even the software was developed and it was tested to be fully fine. But the Myrai botnet actually found out the ways of corrupting the software as well. So in a way that happens to make things like that. That's only the cryptanalysis people will be doing, that they will try to find out the flaws in all these programs and new setup itself. And this is a very good story is given in IEEE Spectrum actually about the Myrai botnet. If anyone is going on, like if you're interested, you can go and look at the strange story of the teens behind the Myrai botnet. It actually was developed by some of the teens in college. So it's so fascinating as a story. If anyone wants it, you can just go into Googling and try it from. Right. So that is all about the aspect of the securities that we come across. And finally, the last element of our discussion, and that is primarily the intrusion detection of IoT networks, which I was telling you that what my work of portion of intrusion detection or the vulnerability aspect that I have taken care of, or rather we have taken care of in VIT. And so to start off that, so the summary of the observation so far is that IoT networks are key to 5G networks and it's not secure. But why I'm saying you this is not only for IoT networks, it happens with all the other devices which can be connected. But since my focus is on IoT networks for the time being, so I'm focusing only on IoT networks. And as I said, they're already vulnerable to cyber attacks. And that is one of the reasons why we are proposing something called as intrusion detection system at the initial stage when the packet is getting delivered. There itself, we will find out which one is a malicious node and which one is a non-malicious node. So keeping that in mind, this is something of what the generic diagram is. For that, we will create some kind of a data set. Okay, the data is gathered through the bot IoT data set, which is a very commonly available data set for bot IoT. In fact, there is something called as botnet also, but we prefer to bot IoT because it had around 9453 of common instances and around 7 lakhs of typical attacks. That includes everything: the denial of service, the man in the middle attack, the normal attack. So all together around this much. And this huge data set were trained. Okay, keeping this in mind that 80% is considered for the training and 20% will be for the testing. Now, usually the process is that usually the sensor node will be there and we will form a sensor network. From there, the data which will be come to the MAC and all. So maybe I'll show you the next diagram itself. So if I zoom, sorry, I'll just show you here. So if you observe over here, the MAC is over, so the data comes in over the MAC layer. From here, we are going to use the synthetic minority oversampling technique, or in short, we call it the SMOT and the random undersampling technique, or ROS, to balance the data set. All right. I'm not going to detail of all these algorithms specifically, but basically we are having a raw data. So the data is unbalanced. So we have to make it balanced. So that is what we are doing using this SMOT and ROS technique. After it is done, we are sending it to something called as modified honey badger algorithm, which is nothing but an optimized algorithm for the feature selection. Now, those who are not aware of feature selection is out of those data set, there will be multiple, like in this case, there will be 47 instances which will be there, 47 parameters. Very simple to say, 47 parameter and their 7 lakhs data. So naturally, those whole things we cannot take into account while simulating it because it will be very much computationally inefficient. So what this algorithm, mHBA, will do is that it will take the help of the meta-heuristic algorithm of Honey Badger, and it will use something called as flight technique, Levy flight technique, we call it. And from 47 instances, 47 parameters, it will optimize it to 3 parameters only. All right, so that is the basic advantage of using this particular step where we are trying to have the feature selection properly. Because based on this feature selection only, the intrusion detection will be classified using something called as Hoot algorithm. Okay, again, I'm not going into the details because it is a rigorous mathematical thing over here, which is not beyond this talk itself. So the optimizations from first, we are doing the feature selection. From those feature selection, we are optimizing it for the classification. That how many nodes are there which are malicious and which are non-malicious. So that checking is done using something called as improved efficiency shuttle bidirectional Hoot algorithm. So that is the short form of IEEE where finally what we are trying to do is by classifying the whole data set, we are trying to find out whether based on that data, we are getting first of all, we are able to detect the malicious and the non-malicious node. That's one. And secondly, after detection, whether the efficiency of the system, the network, is actually deteriorating in terms of the energy consumption, in terms of the true positive rate, okay, or the detection parameters for that matter. So that is given. This is the process I've just mentioned right now. So just to give you a insight. So first we are collecting the data, then we are going for the bot IoT data set, then we are balancing the data set, then we are doing the optimal feature selection using mHBA and Levy flight. Then finally we come across the classification of the intrusion detection. And after the classification is done, we are trying to find out the error rate, the computational complexity of the optimization process itself, whether it is too cumbersome to calculate this. And finally, we are taking into account the accuracy and the intrusion rate as well. So keeping all this process and after doing all this research, we found out that these are some of the results that show some promises in terms of the energy consumption analysis, because you remember one of the factors of IoT is to have very low energy consumption strategy. So one of these cases, you can see that the energy consumption for this particular strategy is showing us very low. So that's very important for us. Another thing that comes into mind is the accuracy, which is almost nearing to 1, which is the highest that is possible. So we are getting a very good result of the accuracy after the testing is done. And also, if you observe here, the true positive rate, the confusion matrix is also showing that for the particular botnet data set and the algorithm that we have proposed, we are almost getting an accuracy of 99% of detecting the intrusion detection, like we are detecting the false node to that of the malicious node. So, or rather the non-malicious node from the malicious node. So this all has been summarized, and we have published the paper recently in IEEE Access as well. So it got good comments, and we found out this. So if anyone is interested in working on this aspect, we are actually extending this work to the mobile network for that matter. This is for IoT networks, but we are going to try out our network in terms of the mobile network. One of the factors that came across with this is of getting the data set. So what we are trying to find out, one work is that we are trying to find out with the original, like the we have in our BIT, we have the sense nuts, which can act as an ad hoc network, and we can sense the data itself, and we can find out, we can mimic a scenario of a networking scenario, sensor network scenario, and the IoT network to be precise. Or we are also working on getting the RF range of the mobile data set. And from that data set, we are trying to implement the same rule on top of those data. We are trying to classify them as well. And we are trying to find out whether the intrusion detection in mobile networks also in the same manner it works or not. In fact, in this particular experiment, we have used only 100 nodes for that matter, which is really very small as a simulation set. But it happens to be that with more data, more set, you need more computational power, which we don't have right now. So as of now, we have done with 100 nodes as such, and we got some good result as such as of now. So to summarize, to end off all this and come across that what the 5G security and vulnerability and we are looking forward is the current landscape, the whole discussion that we have done is the current landscape of 5G networking and the different security attempts that has been made and some of the strategies that has been adopted in terms of the core infrastructure to make 5G happen. All right. And definitely there will be some security standpoint. There will be some issues with security, which requires attention. But one of the solution can be the software defined radios, the SDR network, which happens to be the best of the lot as of now with respect to the deployment strategy. And finally, we can end that there is no silver bullet, no actual silver bullet that the 5G will be unfeasible or widely insecure. But yes, there will be some hiccups, which we need to address at some point of time. All right. So keeping this in mind, I think I've already overshoot a bit. I would try to end my discussion over here with some promising note. And this is some of the key things which I think I would show you in terms of Indian context. Just the last slide before I end. If you see over here that India in talks with 18 countries for 5G, 4G, 5G implementation, which is a very good news, which happens to be recently it happened. In fact, you will find that this is a report from the geos, it's that 184 cities will have the 5G centers, 5G presence over the period of time. And also IIT Hyderabad, this is a startup. This is only today's news actually, that they are going to have 5G patents, license for 5G patents. They have almost, this company called as VZIC, they have almost 164 patents they have filed. In India, actually, there are a lot of people, lot of companies. You can see in the right-hand side graph. So these are the basic companies which have filed a lot of patents over the period of. Although this data is from 2019 to 22, but along with that, you can see the amount of the number of patents that has been taken care of. In fact, Qualcomm got the maximum rate of number of patent application. In fact, the number of patents approved for that also. So it's a promising sign from Indian context that we are working in a way to standardize this in Indian context, but it will take some time before we can say that we all are equipped with 5G and we can work out a plan to deploy it in every household for that matter. So with that note, let me just thank you all for giving me this pleasure of sharing the content that I wanted to share. So over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Budaditya Bhattacharya, for this very, very interesting lecture. And Korutu, is there any chance of having some question-answer session?
Yeah, we can ask, sir. Anyway, it was a very, very long and very detailed talk.
Yes, definitely.
Still, even though we are late, we can give a little time to ask. And more questions, we can interact with him directly. And one or two questions we can ask.
Actually, I would like to congratulate Budaditya. He is always a good speaker, as I know from my his student life in our laboratory. And he delivered it very lucidly, all the very important aspect of 5G and security issues. Basically, when 5G is going to be deployed, security has to be dealt with efficiently, especially for the Internet of Things. So what I understand from your last slide that you have applied some of the AI/ML model for IoT and security aspect. So you have also generated some confusion matrix. So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
you just little bit explain how do you gather the data for applying those AI/ML?
Ideally, ma'am, the data for bot IoT that we have used, that is available in GitHub. That is very much available in GitHub. There is another data set which is called botnet. But both of them are more or less similar to IoT networks. In terms of, if you say in terms of the mobile data, I have something to share. I think if you give me permission, I can share that with you. I can share this over, I think I'll share the window over here. Just let me know if you can see this window. Are you able to see this?
No, yeah. The Google window is.
this is this window of CRFO. Is it fine, everyone?
It's a Google window.
Google window has come.
Okay, Google window has come. Okay. Now?
Yeah.
Collaborate.
All right.
CRFO.
Yeah, CRFO. Yeah, this is actually this is one of the oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just unfortunately I have just stopped sharing. 1 minute. Is it still visible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come
So
again.
in this, if you type crfo.org.in, this is a data set which you can use it, which was developed by Chandra Research Labs. They have a center here in Chennai, and they are very much coming over here sometime in VIT also. What we can do is like for bot IoT, as I said, it is available in GitHub, as well as we can use the hardwares to collect the data itself. But for RF, it becomes difficult. Okay, so this is one of the factor I found out that this might be useful. You can see if this data set, if you go, and there are these are some of the information or the data set which is already there with them. For example, if you click on data set for RF signal classification, you will find that these are some of the data with 2 GB of file size, where number of classes are 7. The different sets of modulation starting from BPSK to QPSK and 16 forms are there, 7 set. And these are the number of training samples and testing samples are there. So this is, I would say this is a data set which will be very useful for anyone working in this field, at least for a starting. And along with that, we can also have different set over here. You can see spectrum monitoring measurement under data set also. So you can see area wise, the data set is downloadable, and that is free. That is free actually. So we can actually download this, and I can just download and show you what exactly the content can be. So this is one of the, in Hyderabad, they have made a measurement for a particular band of frequency. So let me just open it. Oops, it's 365 MB, so I think it will take some time. But anyway, what will happen is that
do you have SDR kit at your institute?
SDR kit we do have, ma'am. We do have SDR kit. We do have. Although I personally have not worked on it. That's another thing.
So
but it is there.
Using those data, you can also generate using the SDR kit, because it will be, if you use those frequency band at the lower 3 to 5 gigahertz or above that, if you have whatever SDR you have, you can generate both of the waveform and the data, because sometimes the data that you can get from this GitHub or other else, it may not match with your requirement.
Absolutely.
So the way you have described is okay, good. So from using SDR, you can generate your own data.
Fine. Sure, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Udaditya.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
What's your email address now? Go to the first slide.
Yeah, I'll go to the first slide. Okay. 1 minute.
Okay, you are Budhaditya at vit.ac.in. Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Feel free to contact me, anyone, like if you want to work on this domain, or you want to, I can also help you out in any way if you want from my side, any contribution for that matter. So I'll be really it will really help me as well if anything comes up like this.
We have a recorded YouTube recorded. So this talk is already in the YouTube. So
okay.
Anybody who can interact with this one, later on we can interact with him.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
This type of talks is very good, but it has taken a long time. That's the only thing.
Unfortunately, I understood that.
We have to. You have to-
I understood that. I kept you waiting for long.
Very good talk. Anything
I
from?
want to say, Buddhaditya, I have in my lab, I have both the SenseNet network and the SDR kit working in the lower and upper band. If you want to take data or generate, you can use my lab also. This is
Thank you.
my offering from my side. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Leaving, actually, I had to leave because so many calls I obtained, but I could not get this call involved. I am leaving.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Shah Misro, for your presence and support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it's a very good talk. We have to specially thank you. And normally for all speakers, we used to give a digital memento. It is normally being made by Akhil, but he is sick. So we are unable to deliver that to you. But we are planning to give the physical memento in some time in some of the our national conferences somewhere else.
Okay.
Sorry for the inability now, because we work with the students and all those.
So if you have a soft version, you can send it by mail to Dr.
Yeah, otherwise,
Buddhaditya.
we'll mail it to him, because he was not able to make it up by this time.
That's fine. That's not a problem.
That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moshiki.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a wonderful lecture. Dr. Buddhaditya, though this is not my domain, but I understood it well. So that speaks volumes about how you spoke. Very lucid, very well presented. Thank you so much.
Is free. Just 1 or 2 words about giving a vote of thanks on behalf of LMAG. Mic is muted. Or else, if his mic is muted, anybody from Kolkata section to give a 1 word of vote of thanks.
Okay. I request Moshiki to propose a vote of thanks.
Just 1 word. Okay.
Thank you so much for organizing today's talk. This talk was organized by IEEE LMAG India, LMAG Kolkata section, and IEEE Kerala section. So my heartfelt thanks to all of you for organizing this, as well as to Dr. Buddhaditya for giving such a wonderful and enlightening talk. I know it must have been very overwhelming to have so many experts present here and to speak before them, being a junior yourself. But I'm sure all our senior members present here were happy to hear you speak, and we're also enlightened by whatever you spoke, because that's what is happening currently. So I guess they have also gained some information from what you spoke during this session. Thank you everybody for attending this session. And yes, thank you for having me. My heartfelt thanks to Professor Sholil Kumar Shanna, who is the chair of LMAG Kolkata section, and also to Professor Varghese for organizing this event. Thank you so much. I think we will end here. Is it fine, sir? Can we call it a day?
Let this be today's end, and let it be a start for the future also. Thank you all.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a very good day, a good night to whichever part of the world you are.
Thanks to all senior LMAGs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and have a nice night. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.